Hi, thank you, Duncan, for inviting me to speak and everyone joining us today. I'm really humbled by this opportunity to talk about designing empathic health tech products that are accessible for the public. Just a quick disclaimer, I'm not claiming to be an expert. I'm just here to share what I've learnt. Before I begin, just a little bit about me. I'm a parent before anything else, a mummy to this little Bambi. I'm innately an empathic person, so I pursued a career in healthcare. I graduated in BSc Biomedical Sciences at the University of Manchester, and over that period I gained experience in various healthcare settings, working as a healthcare assistant, shadowing doctors. I even got to observe surgeries. I took a gap year after graduation in 2010 with the intention to go into research. But I'm still on that gap year. What can you do? Because life happens, right? I joined the family business to revive a non-performing Indian gold jewelry website. This was a new industry and there were a lot of new challenges. At the time, there were no other Indian gold e-commerce websites. Customers visiting the shop and purchasing in-store, they made frequent visits to watch the gold rate before they made their purchase. The prices of the gold jewelry in Indian gold shops fluctuates based on the latest gold rate price. It's not a fixed price as in English jewelry shops. So we try to replicate this in-store gold shopping experience to our online e-commerce site. So on there, the product prices change twice daily and our customers this way know that they're getting the best deal. Whilst I was working on this project, I learned information architecture, taxonomy, nomenclature. I had a great mentor who was the developer on the project, and through this experience I also learned graphic design, business, UX, SEO, social media marketing. At this point, a part of me was really missing the healthcare world. I felt like my experiences were just too random. And the reason that I'm sharing this with you is that many of us are facing a lot of uncertainty at the moment with everything going on with the coronavirus. Businesses are closing down, people are getting laid off. A lot of our career plans, as we had set them out, they're just falling apart. And I understand what that feels like. This is a quote that really resonated with me. Parenthood can prompt mothers to think differently about what they want from their careers. Over the past year, I came to this realization. All my seemingly random experiences have a mountain of value. So instead of getting frustrated at them, I need to own them. And that's why I founded Evouke. It's complete empathic design and strategy solutions for health tech, including UX, branding, social media, and content. I can work directly with startups or with other agencies on health tech projects or scale-ups. It's a parent-friendly and flexible and remote work setup from the start. If you're a freelancer and are interested in designing empathic products that make a real difference to the lives of others, then please do get in touch with me. You can find my email address and my social handles at the bottom right of the slides. Also, I'll point out that I've put slide numbers on so that if anybody has questions on a particular slide, they can reference it easily. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was empathy. The State of the Heart report collects data every couple of years on emotional intelligence. And they do this for 100,000 people in 126 countries. And in just 2 years, they reported there's been a 3.3% drop in people's ability to navigate emotions, 2.9% drop in people's ability to engage intrinsic motivation, and a 2.4% drop in empathy. That basically means people globally are more emotionally volatile, less self-motivated, and less compassionate. And we just have to look at the news or go on Twitter just for 5 minutes, and that's the story everywhere. This article I really recommend by Daniel Harvey. It's very thought-provoking, and you can view it as a talk or read it as an article. He talks about how we live in an outrage economy, and amongst other things, how he shows how Trump made use of the outrage economy to get significantly more media coverage and draw attention to himself. He talks about how some emotions, such as outrage, are more profitable than others. A 2017 study by Yale neuroscientist Molly Crockett suggests that outrage is a primary driver of viral social media posts, and posts that evoke happiness are a very distant second. Here is one of the many examples Daniel gives of how we can design more responsibly. I'm going to go on and talk about working for Cancer Central as the lead UX designer. It's the Empathic healthtech product for people affected by cancer, and we won Healthtech Innovation of the Year 2019, which is really exciting for us. This is Evouke. She's my angel, and she's also the CEO and founder of Cancer Central, and she very deservedly won Women in IT Entrepreneur of the Year. And she was diagnosed with breast cancer at the age of 37, and she was a director of IT, so really tech literate. And that's when she came up with Cancer Central during a difficult year of test procedures and treatments. And her story all started with a hat. She was about to have chemotherapy and she was off work and at home, and she just wanted cheering up, and she thought she could go and have a fun day out, go hat shopping and make a day of it. After using Google for 2 hours trying to find hat shops, she says she was perplexed. She couldn't find anything locally. Surely there was a way to drop a pin on a map and see all the support available around. Sadly, most of the results were US based, and she was just frustrated. Why can't I just go to one place and get all the information I need? Evouke says, having made a career in the technology industry, I'd like to think I was pretty savvy, but on this occasion, I was frustrated, upset, and felt I had failed. This can't be right. Most of the valuable information was found by chance when talking to people. For example, Avril only heard about the Willow Foundation a few days before her birthday, after which she would no longer be eligible to participate. There's a very simple framework to design empathically by Kupri and Visa. The first stage of that is discovery. And in this stage, we absorb what the users are going through and feel what they are feeling instead of reacting immediately trying to solve the problem. The second stage is the immersion stage, and this stage we attempt to directly experience the lives, context and activities and environments of the user and uncover intangible needs and feelings that indicate what should ideally change in the product we're focusing on. The third stage, connection, often occurs naturally during the first two stages. The key here is to be sincere, and it can sometimes help to recall your own similar experience. And the last stage is detachment. This is where you're returning to your role as a designer to come up with a solution. It's kind of the opposite to what you're doing in the first three stages, where you're getting rid of any biases you have as a designer and being very open to what the user is going through. But in detachment, you're trying to get rid of user biases and trying to think practically as a designer on how to find solutions to the user's problems. User stories are really good for the first three stages because to satisfy the user, we must connect, relate, and empathize with them. Stories reveal insights we can only be aware of by interacting with the potential user. One of the users I interviewed, who I'm going to call Adam, I'm going to share his story with you guys. He's 55 years old. His profession is a sales consultant in the tech industry. He has a high proficiency in tech and he loves to cycle. He was diagnosed with bowel cancer 3 years ago and then re-diagnosed with lung cancer last year. And at the time of interview, he was awaiting scan results post-treatment. Adam describes going through 3 phases during the journey, and at each stage, a range of emotions and different challenges when trying to find information. In the first stage, which is the diagnosis stage, you get your symptoms, you go to the GP refers you to a consultant, they do some tests, and then you're diagnosed. And during this, you go through a period of personal research trying to understand what is it? Is it curable? Is it treatable? What journey might I go on? And you shock yourself. You shock yourself with all the information going around. What could it be? What are my chances of survival? Where could it spread to? And then after the diagnosis, you calm down a little bit. There's a plan. You're on a journey. You're in the doctor's hands and they're going to do something about it. But then you start researching the treatment. What are they going to do? What is this radiotherapy? What is this operation? Are there any alternatives? Doctors won't decide for you, they just give you the options. Adam had to decide between a complicated operative procedure, and he wasn't sure if it was the right way to go forward. If it wasn't for his brother's friend who was a surgeon giving him advice, he said he would have been completely lost. The last stage, recovery, this phase is the hardest to find information on. Adam's biggest worry was, would he be able to cycle again? He had a colostomy, so he had wounds on his abdomen. He was unsure how he can exercise, how can he get back into life again, where can he go to find people that have had similar experiences, and is there a diet he should follow? He really struggled with this. With all the guidance you have from the healthcare system during the treatment and diagnosis stages, once you're in recovery, there's not that much he shared with me. And there's masses of information on diet, but it's all so technical, like, this is X vitamin and you need this much of this vitamin and this has antioxidants in it. And Adam said, I just want someone to say, here's a meal plan. Looking at the pain points of our users, a lot of the results are US based, and our users really had a strong preference to have information that they knew was from the UK. Most of the information was all over the place. It took endless searching to find what you're looking for. And a lot of the best information was stumbled across by chance, by talking to people, looking through Facebook groups. And it's very difficult to see what's available locally. Often users don't even know what to search for. They're so overwhelmed, and so they struggle with search intent. Time constraints meant that I had to take a very lean approach in the immersion stage. I tried to retrace several steps and search for chemo hats near Eastbourne. Most of the results were online stores. They weren't physical shops, and a lot of them were US based. The only promising result was this one from Cancer Research UK on the first page of the Google results. And it looked like that I could potentially find a local shop near me. When I visited the site, I was presented with a list of shops, and I had to manually expand each one to look at their address and location. When I got to the second one, it said Wrexham LL13. And if your geography is anything like mine and you have no idea where Wrexham is, you'll look at the postcode LL13 and think it must be in London, because M is in Manchester, so L must be for London. Or it'll be close enough to London, so that's near Eastbourne. But then after I manually copied and pasted the postcode to my navigator, I realized it's on the other side of the country in Wales. So keeping in mind the physical and emotional state the user would be in, this can be really frustrating and tedious to have to manually go and expand each result and try and find a shop near you. We know that there's 3 ways our users like to search. The first kind of user has a clear intent. They do a direct search. I am looking for chemo hats in Eastbourne. The second one has an ambiguous intent. They do a search, but they need some kind of guidance. They don't really know specifically what they're looking for. For example, Adam, I am about to go have a colostomy. What should I know? And the third kind of user, who I'm going to call Bob, really needed a fully guided search. I'm overwhelmed with my diagnosis. I have no idea what I should be looking for. So how can we cater to all 3 different types of users? And one of the considerations was we could potentially use a chatbot to guide the user. In order to do that, we need to look at some of the challenges with chatbots and go back to the immersion and connection stages. The users describe them to be very cumbersome. I'd rather not have to keep typing in and responding to the bot's questions. I accidentally clicked the wrong reply to the bot and couldn't undo or change it. Imagine having to type persistent trophoblastic disease and choriocarcinoma every time you talk to a chatbot to tell it what cancer you have, or even pronouncing it if you're using a voice interface. I tried that with Siri and it gave me some results to do with a plastic disease, to do with corals in the Atlantic, which had absolutely nothing to do with cancer. So chatbots are very slow and inefficient, and you might have to go through a lengthy conversation before you can get to the results. So how can we make this experience more efficient for users with a very clear intent, like the example I gave with Avril? So one of the ways Avril could potentially search is by just typing in a search as soon as she starts the conversation with the chatbot. Are there any chemo hat shops near me in Eastbourne? And then the chatbot would immediately give the results. Another way she can search if she's not feeling very chatty is by using some filters on the side. So I came up with the idea of a customizable chatbot. And here Avril would enter breast cancer, chemotherapy, hats, and potentially a location, and she'd immediately be given hat shops near her and a map. Another challenge is chatbots are unforgiving. One of the chatbots I tried, it was taking my demographic data and it only gave me multiple choice options. And I accidentally hit male instead of female, and that drove me crazy and made me panic, and I wanted to undo it. And there was nowhere in the settings or anywhere I could undo or go back or amend my response. So from this point onward, this chatbot would think I was a male instead of a female. So is there a way our users can go back and amend their previous messages without having to restart the entire conversation from scratch, either when they've made a mistake or they've changed their mind and want to search for something differently? An example of messenger interface that does this is Telegram. I absolutely love the fact that you can go back and you can edit messages you've sent. So say I've changed my mind, I don't want to search for wigs, I want to search for hats, I can go back and change it. And I thought this was something we could potentially incorporate into a chatbot experience. And it could regenerate the results it gives after you've edited a previous search query. And how can we guide users who don't know what to search for or just want to find out what's available specific to their journey? So like Bob, who's completely overwhelmed and does not know where to begin with his search. And in this, either the chatbot could potentially detect hesitation in the user and offer an initial prompt. So try asking me a question using keywords such as cancer type, treatment, or local services. And if there's still hesitation in the user, it could follow up by giving suggestions. We can also try and detect rage clicks, random scrolling, or backtracking to see if a user is getting frustrated or confused. And the chatbot could adjust prompts accordingly. And the other cool thing with this is with the customization filter that I previously showed you, the suggestions that the chatbot would give could be optimized for the user and they could be customized for them. The other thing I wanted to talk about was accessibility. There's a lot of health tech out there that is inadvertently only accessible to those of more affluent socioeconomic groups. So how can we make our health tech products more accessible to low-income households, families that have an income of lower than 20k? I think that's approximately 40% of the UK population, but I'm not 100% sure, so don't quote me on this. And I came across this study, a user research report by the Department for Work and Pensions. It's a 74-page report, and they did both primary and secondary research, including landscape gap analysis, user interviews, and questionnaires. And the reason why I find this interesting is because it gives us insights into how to engage and re-engage users and families of this low socioeconomic group. And this can be applied not just in areas of parental conflict, but in any other areas as well. One of the things they looked at are what are the online behaviors of families from these low-income households. Most people struggled with search intent, and this we also saw in the example of Cancer Central with the overwhelmed user. They don't know what to be looking for or what to be typing with search. And many of them, after they've attempted to search and didn't find any relevant results, did not feel confident enough that they could amend the search and find better results. And they just gave up on the search task altogether. They didn't respond favorably to digital offerings that required higher level digital skills or the inputting of personal information, for example, apps that required downloading and registration. And they were very suspicious of forms and email registrations and preferred to remain anonymous. And this is an important consideration as well if you're making a health tech product. The other thing the report looked at was where do they go online and what devices do they use? Most of this group did have access to smartphones, but they had very limited data allowance. The smartphones were of the latest generation. Interestingly, many parents did not own or regularly use laptops or computers. If available, computers and laptops were more favored by children in the household. So generally, they didn't browse the internet. Their behavior online was mostly a narrow band of activities, such as browsing social media networks, Facebook and Instagram. 74% of this group is active on Facebook. And this is very interesting for product teams. If you're working with your marketing team or if you're just a founder of a startup, there's no point investing so much time and effort in product design, on UX, on development, if you are not investing the time in social media and marketing and you're not hanging in these places where these users are hanging. Parents really favored short and snappy videos. This was mainly due to data download restrictions. So if you have videos on your product or your website, make sure they're short. The last consideration I wanted to share from the report was the reading age of the text. The average reading age of adults in the UK is 9 years, and that is the recommendation of the government. So make sure you're paying attention to what the reading age of the copy on your product is. I wanted to share with you this quote by Marina Jolanska. Designers should be deeply aware that they work primarily not for self-expression, not for showing their creativity to the world, not for creating something revolutionary new that will make the world go around in the opposite direction, but they work to solve the user's problems, satisfy their wishes, and achieve business goals. The few things I want you to take away from my talk today is own your story and your experiences. If you're having a tough time with the current situation or generally in a tough place in your life, don't beat yourself up. Go back, look at your experiences and see how do they make you stronger and better at what it is that you want to do. I really recommend reading Key Person of Influence by Daniel Priestley. It's available free as a PDF. Strive to design products that promote empathic behavior in our users, such as the examples Daniel Harvey gave. Use an empathic framework when designing. You don't have to use a framework. With some people, if you're very innately empathic, it probably will naturally come to you to be following a procedure or a process that is like that. But for others, it's good to have a structure to it. So the Kupri and Vista framework is very beneficial for that. Make sure your designs are inclusive and empowering for the user. When Avril said she felt like she had failed, that really hit me. And that is the kind of thing that we're trying to get rid of as UX designers. And don't compromise our users' needs to make something cool. For example, chatbots are all the rave, but ask yourself, is it really the best thing for the user? And will you be able to build it in a way that will be effective and be functional and practical for the user? Also, in case there are any parents really struggling working from home during lockdown, I thought I'd share with you some behind the scenes of when I was working on Cancer Central Phase 1 and just tell you I really feel your pain. It is tough when you don't have childcare and you still have to work. My little one got up to gardening. And the last thing I wanted to tell you guys about was a passion project that I'm working on. It's an app for families. It promotes development of empathy, raising children with good emotional intelligence. And the long-term goal with it is to increase EQ and prevent mental health issues in the first place by helping parents and empowering them. So if there's any like-minded people out there, please do get in touch with me. Thank you for listening. I really appreciate your time. And I look forward to answering any questions you have in the Q&A.